We are back with more on the Chandra Levy case and its impact on what is left of Gary Condit's future. Once again, in Los Angeles, Fox News political analyst and USC law professor Susan Estrich. In Denver, Mario Giardello, columnist for PoliticalUSA.com. And here in the New York studio, California State Democratic Party Chair Art Torres. Mario,
yes.
I know you love Gary Condit. And
I do not love him.
You'd love to have a future for him. But let's think about what is left of his term, saying that he resigns, or I mean, he retires at the end of it. Who's going to touch him? Who's going to be seen with him? Blue dogs are already backing away from him, the Blue Dog Democrats.
There's already...
I mean, seriously, what can he do? He's got a bill coming up on the House floor tomorrow, and usually a lawmaker, when they have their legislation coming up, they go out and they talk, but he's not going to show up.
You know, but there's already been stories of other Democrats hugging them. They haven't removed them off the Intelligence Committee. I think this whole wave we were supposed to see from the Democrats backlashing against him has not happened. In fact, Gephardt's even saying now that it's between him and his constituents. The Democrats have backed off of him. They're not, you know, going after him.
Yeah, I mean, Art, you were saying
they got him to agree to resign. That's something.
Well,
or retire.
Yeah, and we'll, at some point we'll figure out how the story of that happened. Now, Art, you think that that the Blue Dogs really have they've already pushed him away?
Oh, that seems to be evident.
And
the statements by some of them publicly early on was very evident.
Yeah.
Very early on.
And I think that's what's impacting a lot of the dynamics that are going on there.
Do constituents back in California think about, well, gosh, what can this guy really do for me? I mean, how can he get any sort of legislation that he sponsors passed if he's so radioactive?
Well, the polling indicated after the Connie Chung interview that Gary only had 21% support. That's enough to cause a wrinkle if you're running as an independent. Not enough, I think, in the end.
Yeah,
but
I mean, even while he's trying to get anything done in the end of this term.
Well, he still has a vote, and a vote is important when you need a budget, when you need specific legislation that'll make an impact, and when the margin is so small between the Republicans and the Democrats in the House, one vote can make a difference. But I think Susan's point is a very important one, and something that I wanted to talk about very quickly, and that is I think this House of Representatives and this Senate ought to be looking very carefully at what kind of rules affect interns, what kind of relationships are going on there, and where interns should be reporting to in order to. These are young women, young men who are put in very difficult situations, all excited, all wondrous at what is going on around them. Yet who's protecting them? And I'm concerned about that.
There might be something on that in the future. Hey, Susan, I want to ask you about something else that's really interesting. San Francisco Chronicle, the executive editor, Phil Bronstein, getting a lot of criticism for a letter that he wrote to the Condit camp. He was seeking an interview, the first newspaper interview with Gary Condit after he started talking. And here's what he said: clearly we have not called for you to resign, nor do we have any plans to do so. You look at that letter and you start to wonder, wait a minute, was he promising that they would never call for him to resign if he would grant them an interview? What do you think?
Well, I mean, Phil's defense is, I'm sure you know, but others may not, is that since he has no control over the editorial policy of the paper, he wasn't really promising anyone anything. But I think this whole game of who gets the interview and what conditions they offer and the interrelationship between subjects and interviewers deserves enormous, from the media itself, some self-attention. I mean, Phil Bronstein is not the only one out there, in some sense, selling to get an interview. I remember when I was in the position of running a presidential campaign, and all of a sudden, you know, Diane Sawyer wants to buy you lunch, and Barbara Walters says, can I get you a drink? And Connie Chung says, we've been friends forever. And I remember seeing Bob Shapiro, and him telling me that everybody was calling him at home. And I said, yes, Bob, you're queen for a day, or king for a day, as it were. But this is a big problem in this business.
Yeah, and well, I mean, that's true. In the end, the media may have to be re-examined. But, I mean, Mario, doesn't it strike you as just a little bit odd, the verbiage? The executive editor, right? A newspaper, its whole job is editing text, right? That's the whole job. And that letter gets out to Condit. I'm sorry, but it's true. And that letter gets out, and it's not been edited, and you know, it's really open to misinterpretation.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if they're trying to bribe him, I mean, there's no point in that. You know, there's enough negative press on them. He's not going to do something just because there's the potential that they're going to come out and not support him. So.
Yeah, but that's not Phil either. I mean, Phil is a man of pretty much integrity. Maybe the Komodo dragon has had a serum that's had an impact on judgment. But I think
that's so inside baseball. Do you think how many viewers know that he walked into a zoo pen and got his big toe mauled by a Komodo dragon?
But the bottom line is Phil is a man of integrity. I think if he was trying to be clever, maybe cute, maybe this is a way to get Gary to come on to do a newspaper interview, but I think there was nothing much more behind that.
Well, I mean...
But the pressure to compete is so great out there that you can't put it past even a guy like Phil, who is a good guy, to use the fact that his newspaper, for entirely independent reasons, had not come out for a resignation or a retirement as a stick. I mean, everybody uses everything they have. And if he'd gotten the interview, you know that the people at his paper in the business side would be celebrating him as a hero no matter what he did.
All right, one more question. I want to toss out a crazy idea about Gary Condit's future. Sort of what happens if he decides to retire, if he really has decided to retire, what he does next. What if he decides to become a lobbyist, Mario? Because lobbyists are already held in fairly low esteem by a lot of people. I'm not being funny. I mean, I'm being serious, actually. Why not become a lobbyist?
I don't know if he'll have the respect and enough respect to get what he wants to get across, but if he does retire, I'd like to see Chad step up and be his father's Hillary. I mean, he has more. He's more articulate. He's more sensitive. He's better looking. Chad in 2002.
Mario, you just about knocked Susan out of her chair. But Art here doesn't necessarily agree. He actually thinks that Gary Condit is not the kind of guy who actually made friends well enough that he could use his career. He could kind of go back and be a lobbyist. Art, you think?
I think that's the case. I think what Mario said as well, that your reputation and your judgment and your character, even though we may not hold lobbyists in a high esteem, a lot of them are very effective because of their character and because of the relationships they developed while in the Congress or in the legislature.
All right. Well, it's early anyway. All right. Art Torres, Susan Estrich, Mario Giardello, thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
When we come back from Condit